Yeah, and we are live. Good evening. Hope everybody's having a wonderful week. It's Thursday, February 20th. We are about a day and a half away from Riyadh season, the last crescendo, Beterbiev versus Bivol 2. And I know it's been a long time since I've hopped on one of these lives. I'm going to try to, pick it up more frequently. Just had our first baby a few months ago. So it's been a wonderful adjusting period. And the next time I do a live, I might just have him sitting on my lap. So that might be a pretty fun experience. So I wanted to get on one of these chats and talk about the card from top to bottom. I wanted to give some predictions on all of the cards. I've issued a couple videos on a few of the cards. Nicholas, what's up? Thank you for coming through. There were a couple big updates that we want to start off and we want to get into. And it was really one after the other, like one day and then the next day. Two big fights fell out. Floyd Schofield got sick. His camp accused Shakur Stevenson of poisoning him. That was pretty wild. And then today, Daniel Dubois, who was set to defend his IBF title against Joseph Parker, pulled out of that fight due to illness. I guess he was sick, and then he was evaluated by a doctor, and they called that fight off. So his late replacement is Martin Bakole. So now we've got Joseph Parker versus Martin Bakole. So I want to talk about these fights a little bit from top to bottom and give my predictions. Again, I dropped a couple of the videos. I did one for Beterbiev versus Bivol 2, and we're going to talk about that one towards the end as well. We're going to talk about all the fights on this card, or at least those top 7 fights. And then I did one on Daniel Dubois versus Joseph Parker. I was going to go Daniel Dubois versus stoppage. That's what I had said in the prediction video. But again, that one is now off and the replacement is Martin Bakole. So we're going to get into that. And then I did one on what is probably my favorite fight outside of the main event on this card. And that's Vergil Ortiz Jr. versus Israil Madrimov. Like, I can't wait for that one. There's just so much intrigue and mystery. And I just want to discuss that with some of you here. So yeah, like, why don't we get right into it? And I'm not gonna give the whole fighter profile, fighter A, fighter B, and all their histories. I do that on a lot of the fight prediction videos. But on this one, I just want to more so just have this conversational style, talk a little bit about the fight, a little bit about what I think of the betting odds and whether I think that those odds are accurate, and then just what I kind of expect to see. Also, there's certain fights here that I feel are tougher to call than others, but what makes this card so special is that most of the fights that we're getting here there's a lot of uncertainty, and I don't think anybody can say with relative certainty that fighter A or fighter B is going to win. So why don't we start with the one that's kind of listed as the 7th fight on the card, which is Joshua Buatsi versus Callum Smith. This one is featuring 2 of the better light heavyweights in boxing, basically 2 of the best non-Beterbiev or Dmitry Bivol light heavyweights in boxing. This one is interesting because legendary SS Jackson, thank you for coming through. Heck yeah. Yeah. Buatsi versus Callum Smith, I think is interesting because Callum Smith's only 2 losses are to Canelo Alvarez and Artur Beterbiev. And I look at Callum Smith, even though he's only had a few fights at light heavyweight since his long campaign at 168, where he was the WBA titleist for a while until Canelo took that from him. But Joshua Buatsi's been the light heavyweight throughout his career. He's fought a few pretty good fighters. He's fought, Craig Richards, and then most recently, Willie Hutchinson, which I thought was one of Buatsi's best opponents, and it was one of his best performances. He won it via split decision. But I look at Callum Smith as being the more dangerous puncher between the two. That's still kind of the wild card for me. And again, the only guys who've beaten Callum Smith, Canelo and Artur Beterbiev. Joshua Buatsi ain't that. He's a really good fighter, and he's kind of a workhorse in there. He throws a lot of punches. He mixes it up. He's got a lot of a pretty high work rate and a lot of volume. But he's not he gets hit a lot, right? He got hit a lot by Willie Hutchinson, and he got hit a lot by, Craig Richards. He gets hit a lot in a lot of his fights. If he gets hit by Callum Smith, like he gets hit against some of his other opponents, I don't think he's going to be able to withstand that. Like, did you see what Callum Smith did to Lenin Castillo, who's a pretty durable fighter? He's pretty durable. I think that, Joshua Buatsi being the betting favorite here, it's a little bit, look, not that he shouldn't be the betting favorite, but he's a pretty wide favorite. It's something like he's like a minus 250, something like that. Buatsi is. So he's a greater than 2-1 favorite against somebody who I'm not convinced he's even better than. I feel like a stoppage loss does a lot to your stock. And because of the way Callum Smith got beaten up by Artur Beterbiev, I think that a lot of people think that Joshua Buatsi is seemingly the fresher fighter who's more in his prime. But, Callum Smith is like 34 years old. He's not an old fighter. He's been in a couple very difficult fights. And a lot of people thought that, John Ryder should have probably edged a decision against him several fights ago, right? This was a few years ago. But again, Callum Smith, yes, he does have his flaws. No, he's not a perfect, sweet science stylist fighter. He's not that type of a boxer. But again, he's got get you out of there power. He's got a nice left hook, and he's got a devastating straight right hand. I'm not convinced, based on what I've seen, that Joshua Buatsi that he could stay out of the way of that. So, look, I think I'm still going to go with Buatsi to edge Callum Smith here, but I would not be surprised if Callum Smith surprises a lot of people and drops Buatsi. Whether he gets a stoppage, I don't know, but Buatsi's about 5'11". Callum Smith is 6'3". The way that Josh Buatsi boxes, he mixes it up. He gets in there, and he's usually the more rugged out of the two fighters. Yes, Callum Smith can get roughed up, but again, Joshua Buatsi isn't a boxer, nearly the boxer of Canelo Alvarez, and he's not nearly the wrecking ball that is Artur Beterbiev. So he's going to get hit. Can he take the punishment? I look at Callum Smith as being a pretty durable fighter. Canelo didn't stop him. It was only Artur Beterbiev, and it took rounds of beating Callum Smith down to stop him. Now, is that beating going to play into the rest of his career, where it's going to make him a lesser fighter throughout the rest of his career? Perhaps. But again, I haven't seen enough evidence for me to want to make Joshua Buatsi a minus 225, minus 250 favorite. Let me see what some of you are saying. Yeah, Nicholas said, I feel like Callum Smith has an issue with confidence and not committing when he throws, at least not against the huge punches like Canelo. I think he'll be more confident here as well. He's only had one fight since that stoppage loss to Artur Beterbiev. But, that having that one fight since a devastating loss, sometimes that does enough for a fighter's confidence to where he could kind of trick himself into thinking that he's that guy again. Now, is Callum Smith there? Maybe not. But again, he's going to have his opportunities to let his hands go because, Joshua Buatsi, unless Callum Smith is a shot fighter, I think that he's going to have some success. And I think he's going to have some moments to where we look at Joshua Buatsi like, ooh, is he okay? Again, I look at Callum Smith as being the more blessed puncher between the two. Yeah, Nicholas, I agree. I do like how Buatsi handled Hutchinson pretty easily, even though it was ultimately ruled a split decision. I didn't agree with that at all. But even in the way that Buatsi handled Hutchinson, he basically beat him up over time, and he was hitting Hutchinson with very clean shots, and he dropped Hutchinson, right? I think multiple times, but he was getting hit a lot, and he was still having to mix it up. I mean, he got hit hard by Hutchinson. He was able to take that. You can't keep your head in the line of fire. And Buatsi isn't one of these guys who moves his head a ton. So again, the 6'3" Callum Smith, he's going to have his opportunities here. And if Callum Smith does pick up this win, this will probably be his best win since what? George Groves, maybe? You know, it's been a while since Callum Smith has had a very meaningful win. I guess you could say John Ryder, but George Groves was a much more significant win for Callum Smith than John Ryder. At the time, we didn't know too much about Ryder. He was kind of a, middling, journeyman / contender. He started shining later in his career. John Ryder did. Ryan Hong, thank you for coming through. Who do I like in the Parker Bakole fight? Yeah, we're going to get to that. Yeah, that was the breaking news of the day. I was like, I had seen Boxing Wave, one of my favorite, YouTube boxing channels. I had seen him on his Instagram story put up that Dubois might be out of the fight. At first, I thought that it was like some, as soon as I saw Dubois, I'm like, please don't tell me that, he's kind of pulling a Floyd Schofield and he's not going to be fighting on this card. And then I read the headline. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's being evaluated by a doctor. He's fallen ill. He won't be able to defend his heavyweight title. We could go into that fight next. Why don't we? Because, there's several fights that we're going to cover. So again, I'm going with, let me know who you're going with, by the way, Joshua Buatsi or Callum Smith. I think Callum Smith has a really good shot at hurting and maybe even dropping, perhaps even stopping Buatsi. But I'm going to go with Buatsi via close decision here. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if Callum Smith hurts that guy. With Parker versus Dubois, or should I say Dubois versus Parker being canceled, and then enter late replacement Martin Bakole, who's even bigger than Daniel Dubois, one of the most feared and avoided, heavyweights in boxing, Bakole is. It's funny because Joseph Parker, he's one of the most game guys out there, right? And I said this in the Dubois versus Parker preview. It's been a long road to get back to title contention for Joseph Parker, right? He lost to Anthony Joshua, his first loss in his career by decision. Then he loses that decision against Dillian White. Then he beats a few lesser fighters, and among them Junior Fa. And then he finally has those back-to-back fights with Derek Chisora. And then he has that huge setback, getting destroyed by the then undefeated juggernaut Joe Joyce, right? And so when Parker got stopped by Joyce, I was thinking, this might be the beginning of the end for Joseph Parker. Maybe his title hopes in becoming a two-time champ, because remember, he was a WBO champ back in the day when he beat Andy Ruiz for that vacant title. I thought that when Parker lost to Joe Joyce via stoppage, we never seen anybody do that to Joseph Parker. I thought that his title shot and his title run was done. But then he got back on his horse, right? He won a few fights, stopped Simon Keane and a couple of others. And then he has that fight where he's supposed to be the Deontay Wilder tune-up before they make Wilder versus Anthony Joshua. But I was looking at that like, damn, Wilder better hit him hard and hurt him, because if Wilder's not knocking him out or dropping him, he's probably losing the round. And Joseph Parker, a pretty significant upset, even though it should have been seen as a very, very competitive fight, which it was largely, but Wilder was still a big favorite. Wilder was almost as big a favorite against Joseph Parker as Anthony Joshua was against Otto Wallin that same night. I always thought that Parker had a better chance at upsetting Wilder than Wallin did at upsetting AJ. And so Parker beats Wilder, then he beats Zhilei Zhang via decision, split decision or something like that, in a fight where Parker got dropped twice, but Zhilei Zhang, I should say, his punch output was so non-voluminous. He hardly threw anything. And when he was throwing something, he was often hurting or dropping Joseph Parker. So Parker wins the decision there. So he's got back-to-back big upsets. Zhilei Zhang was a big favorite against Joseph Parker. So that totally, that was like a huge redemption for Joseph Parker. Big rejuvenation. And then he was going to fight Daniel Dubois. And I thought that Daniel Dubois was going to ultimately crush Joseph Parker, because we've seen the ride that Daniel Dubois has been on, right? He entered that Filip Ergovic fight to Michael Jackson's Bad, and then we saw in there how bad he was. He was willing to walk through dozens of clean right hands from Filip Ergovic, and basically like made it known by the end of the first round, I'm willing to walk through hell to get to you. Are you willing to absolutely go to war tonight? And I think that played into the psyche of Filip Ergovic. And yes, he did continue to belt Daniel Dubois with several more right hands, but Dubois continued to walk through him, and it eventually kind of broke Filip Ergovic. Ended up cutting him, and that was a stoppage. But I think that stoppage cut, or that cut stoppage, was a favor for Filip Ergovic because of how badly he started getting beaten up by Daniel Dubois. But, with Joseph Parker, this was supposed to finally be his next title opportunity. It's been this road, right, for Parker. Mostly wins, but a couple losses, and that Joe Joyce one was a really bad one. So he gets back to the title, and now he's going to be fighting a non-title fight against Martin Bakole, who nobody seems to want to fight. By the way, didn't they schedule, what was it? Was it Efe Ajagba who was supposed to be fighting Bakole? I think that was the fight. Let me know who Ajagba was supposed to fight if it's not Bakole, but I think they were supposed to have been making that one. Joseph Parker is a soldier for deciding to go through with this fight because there's a good chance that Martin Bakole can crush Joseph Parker, and then what happens to that title shot? He'll never see that title again. Props to him for taking the fight on super short notice. I hope they're paying him very well, which I'm pretty sure that they are. I'm sure that incentivizes Joseph Parker, who's usually down to fight anyone, to go forward with this short notice Joseph Parker fight. I like that Richard Torres Villanello fight as well, by the way, Nicholas, I agree. And the winner should get Ajagba. Bakole versus Ajagba, I guess, is now off because Bakole's about to be fighting Daniel Dubois or Joseph Parker. And I'm guessing that the winner of that is going to ultimately fight for that IBF title that Daniel Dubois holds. Martin Bakole, he's a thudder, right? He's got these clubbing shots, not too dissimilar from Joe Joyce, but I think Joe Joyce has the better jab. They both have a good chin. Bakole lost to Michael Hunter, but he suffered an injury. It was a very competitive fight, and Michael Hunter had to work his butt off to outbox Bakole throughout most of that fight. I think that Joseph Parker can do a lot of what Michael Hunter did to have success against Bakole. And we've seen Bakole tire in the later rounds. We saw him, tire when he was beating the brakes off Tony Yoka. If he didn't tire, he would have probably stopped Yoka. Bakole tires, doesn't have a great jab, can get outboxed in spurts, and we saw him getting hit a lot against even Jared Big Baby Anderson before he caught and stopped Anderson, but I don't think Anderson is as durable as Joseph Parker. Yes, we've seen Parker hurt against, different fighters, Dillian White and others. He got dropped in the first 10 seconds of that first Chisora fight, but I look at Parker as being a high IQ, very durable fighter. Nothing was going to stop the juggernaut on that night, right? Unless maybe you were Zhilei Zhang. Styles make fights, as they say. But I do think that Parker has enough savvy in him and changes levels well, throws nicely timed right hands, moves well, knows when to clinch, when to create space. Parker's a lot bigger than Carlos Takam, who is another guy who Martin Bakole broke down and stopped largely to the body. Joe Joyce was breaking Parker to the body. Bakole also likes to break people down to the body. But I think Parker's ready. He was ready for Daniel Dubois. And I think that if you're ready for Daniel Dubois, or at least if you think you're ready for Daniel Dubois, you should be ready for the slightly slower, the slower. It's tough to say who hits harder between Bakole and Daniel Dubois. Daniel Dubois obviously hits, like thunder, or rather lightning. But I'm going to go with Joseph Parker to pull it off via decision. I think he's going to be able to work his way out of the tight spots. I think he's got enough wherewithal to endure those difficult moments where he gets caught with something big, or it could be like mid-round and Bakole's just hell bent on going to Parker's body. I think Parker's going to time him with nice shots. And the style of pressure that Bakole applies is a little less bull in a china shop in your face than what Derek Chisora was doing in the first Parker versus Chisora fight. I'm going to go with Parker via decision in that one. Close decision. Parker might even get dropped, but I think that he's going to outbox Bakole. I think Bakole's going to start to tire, and I think that that's going to be another very good win on Joseph Parker's already good resume. He's beaten Andy Ruiz, beaten Derek Chisora twice. I know that first one was disputed. The one that Parker, I'm sure, really wants or wishes he could get back was that Dillian White fight. Let me get to some of what you're saying. Jay Foreman is in the house. Thank you for coming through. Jacob Perez, thank you for coming through. Yes. Do I think Vergil Ortiz can beat Madrimov? Jacob Perez asked. Yes, I do think he can beat Madrimov. I issued a whole preview on that one. I'm going to give you my prediction in this live chat, but if you get a chance, I give a lot of like the road for both fighters to how we got here and just kind of what I think stylistically is going to be the problem for either. So I'm not going to go as in depth here, but I'll give you who I think is going to win that one. I'm going to cover a couple more of these undercard fights before we get there. I'll let you know though that Vergil versus Madrimov is probably my favorite non-main event fight on this historically good fight card. I just love this Vergil Ortiz versus Madrimov fight. And by the way, remember when they were trying to tell us that Madrimov was going to first fight Sergey Bohachuk on that Usyk versus Fury 2 undercard, and then 2 months later was going to fight Vergil? I knew that was almost like comical. And that, days later, Madrimov pulls out of that fight against Bohachuk due to bronchitis. I'm like, yeah, okay. It was just like ridiculous, like double booking matchmaking. But they stuck with the right fight. Vergil versus Madrimov is just one of the best fights in one of the best divisions in the sport. There's just this there's this mystery around Madrimov. Is he as good as his reputation grew to be because of that super close fight with Terrence Crawford? Is he that good? Is he that good? I know he just beat, Kurbanov soundly before that, but is Madrimov truly that good? We're going to, again, I'll give you my prediction in a little bit in that one, but there's just a lot of mystery. And is it fool's gold or is he really, really the real deal? And again, one of the best divisions in the sport. Those foot feints, by the way, I don't know if I've ever seen a fighter foot feint that much throughout a 12 rounder or 10 rounder in my life. That was more foot feints per minute than I'm used to seeing. And I don't know if he's going to fight Vergil in that same way. I think that because Terrence Crawford fought him from a southpaw stance, Madrimov had a lot of success against Crawford with the right hand specifically. And look at Madrimov's timing. I talk about this in the preview. Look at Madrimov's timing. Like, you know how some people bounce and they throw a predictable pattern with predictable timing on their punches. Think Mark Magsayo down at featherweight. Like sometimes he's like hop, 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 jab, hop, hop, right hand. And it's almost like, yo, you look like you're telegraphing the punch just based on your punch cadence. Madrimov will do something where he's like foot feinting. Terrence Crawford threw a couple punches. They kind of change. They both move a little bit. And then Madrimov on the offbeat just throws the right hand. No setup, no nothing. It's almost like in that little blank space when you're almost, you almost expect another whole second of silence and non-activity. On that millisecond offbeat, Madrimov would just throw a right hand, a hard, just a straight, non-spectacular. It doesn't look like anything that he's like trying to hit a home run with, but it's a hard, straight right hand. And Crawford ate some of those. But again, we're going to talk a little Vergil versus Madrimov down the line. But yes, I do think Vergil can beat Madrimov. But I'll let you know in a few who I think is going to win that fight and how. Let's see. But yeah, I'm going Parker to beat Bakole via decision. Now, which one should we get to next? Why don't we talk Zhilei Zhang versus Agit Kabayel, which that Dubois versus Parker preview that I dropped this morning, which imagine how disheartened I was. Like I go through the trouble of like doing the video, editing the video, I put it out, and I have like towards the end of it, I do a Zhilei Zhang versus Kabayel breakdown, and then I see that the fight's off. It's like, oh, damn. There go the, however long I spent on that. But Zhilei Zhang versus Kabayel. Again, if you want to see the last few minutes of that other video, I do a quick breakdown on Zhang versus Kabayel, but we'll do another one right here. Zhilei Zhang versus Kabayel is interesting because Zhang had that disappointing loss where it was a lot of non-activity against Joseph Parker. But then he knocks out Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder is a low volume puncher, just like Zhilei Zhang is. Zhilei Zhang has a deadly left hand and a nice right hook, right? A nicely timed, sneaky right hook. That's what he dropped Joe Joyce with in that rematch where he made Joe Joyce face plant based on, he ruined Joe Joyce's career. Let's keep it real. Zhilei Zhang, Joe Joyce was looking golden. We wanted to see Joe Joyce fight everybody until he fought Zhilei Zhang, and that was the end of prime Joe Joyce, those two fights. But Zhilei Zhang beautiful left hand, beautiful right hook, not a lot of volume. He can be outboxed and he tends to tire. He almost had a health crisis against Jerry Forrest. I know that they say he was dehydrated before the fight. I'm thinking, you're a heavyweight. It's not like you're cutting weight. Like, what happened in the lead up to that Jerry Forrest fight? But another conversation for another day. Zhilei Zhang's going to fight Agit Kabayel, who's a mover, who, you know, whose reputation was built off of those 2 huge wins, or big wins, not huge, but big unexpected wins against Makhmudov, who was another one of those boogeymen in the heavyweight division, and then against Frank Sanchez, who seems like he was suffering a knee injury. Like, his mobility was not like it was against Efe Ajagba. Frank Sanchez did not fully look like Frank Sanchez in that fight against Kabayel. But you know what? To be honest, until that knockout, Frank Sanchez didn't look like Frank Sanchez for a few of those rounds against Junior Fa. Remember that one? So I'm not sure what to make out of Frank Sanchez right now. I know he's had a fight or two since that loss to Kabayel, but that's how Kabayel really built his reputation. The upset against Makhmudov, Arslanbek Makhmudov, who's since also lost to Guido Vianello, who has lost to Efe Ajagba. You know, Kabayel is a good boxer with some pop, and he moves well. He's crafty. I mean, he just deconstructed Makhmudov and ended up torturing him, absolutely torturing him to the body, to where Makhmudov was just leaning against the ropes, basically saying, yo, hit me in the face. Just don't beat me to the body anymore. And he ended up just sinking Makhmudov repeatedly, mostly to the body. That was one of those, like, hell yeah types of performances, just because you saw like the size gap. And, you know, there's something about Makhmudov's like style, and he does this thing with his neck where it's almost like you're playing a video game, and every time you hit the opponent, they go like this with his neck. I don't know what's up with Makhmudov, why he does that little twitch thing. It's like he's trying to stretch and like get a kink out of his neck or something, but he does it like all the time. Just like Tevin Farmer does like this a lot in some of his fights. Makhmudov does that for some reason. But Agit Kabayel, really good boxer. He did get hurt pretty badly in his fight against Smakichi in Germany right before that Makhmudov fight. Look at that fight. It's only a 3-rounder. Kabayel looks like he's on the brink of getting stopped by somebody I haven't really heard much about. Smakichi is his last name. But then Kabayel ended up finishing him in the 3rd round. Zhilei Zhang, I think that he could suffer the same thing that he suffered against Joseph Parker, who was outboxing him when he wasn't getting dropped. I think that Kabayel can execute a similar game plan against Zhilei Zhang. And I feel like Zhilei Zhang does better against big guys. Think about the success Zhang had against Filip Ergovic in a close fight that really could have gone either way. Many thought that Zhilei Zhang should have won that. They gave it to Filip Ergovic. Look at the success that Zhang had against Ergovic, had against Joe Joyce, and had against Deontay Wilder. Big guys who he's craftier than, who are pretty much on the same like eye-to-eye height level as him, rather than trying to hunt down a Jerry Forrest, who he did drop several times in the opening rounds. Jerry Forrest won almost every round after that. And then, trying to hunt down a Joseph Parker, right? Not a small heavyweight, but smaller, 6'2", 6'3". Even though I think I've seen Joseph Parker listed at 6'4" sometimes, but I think he's more like 6'3". I think that Kabayel is going to give Zhilei Zhang fits. And if the danger is that when Kabayel comes in, he's going to have to do so in a way where he doesn't get drilled by that straight left or by that right hook. I think that he could pull it off. And I think that even in the moments where he gets hurt by Zhang, I don't think that Zhang is going to be able to just go in for the kill and finish him. I think that he will be able to get out of danger when he needs to. And I think that Zhilei Zhang's I think that his volume is going to drop off. In that preview, I picked Kabayel via decision. I'm actually thinking about changing that to Kabayel via stoppage. I just think about how tired Zhilei Zhang looks in a lot of his fights. And I believe that this is a 12-rounder. Let me confirm that. But I think that this is a 12-rounder. And if it is, that's just a longer time for Zhilei Zhang to look tired, and for Kabayel, yeah, it looks like it's a 12-rounder. I think, yeah. Hey, Benji, my cousin, what's up, man? Yeah, thank you for coming through. What changed for Zhang? Seemed like he was unstoppable. I think that he's 41 years old, straight up. I think that's it. The difference between him being in his late 30s and early 40s, because he wasn't a high volume guy to begin with, but I think that the matchmaking for him was advantageous because with Joe Joyce is right in front of you. Joe Joyce basically like lets it be known you could hit me because I could take it, but I'm gonna keep on walking you down until you just want to like fly out of the ring, you know? So I think that was a perfect matchup to make Zhilei Zhang shine because Zhilei Zhang has get you out of their power. Joe Joyce's whole calling card is I could walk through, just dozens of punches and keep on coming forward, the juggernaut. And it was just a recipe for disaster for Zhilei Zhang, who didn't adapt, didn't get better defensively. So I think that made Zhilei Zhang look a little bit better than he is. Like, I think that if you saw Zhilei Zhang fight like, I don't know, like the top 10 heavyweights and you see a mix of styles, even like say like a Frank Sanchez or, a prime Alexander Povetkin or, just different guys, maybe Luis Ortiz and whoever was around like the top 10 in the heavyweights, I think Zhilei Zhang would have had difficulty with a lot of them, especially like at 40 years old, being so low volume. The dude he chain smokes cigarettes basically. And if he's not getting you out of there, he might be having difficulty in that round. So I think that, not that it was fool's gold, like Zhilei Zhang is crafty, he could box a bit, and he's a southpaw who with devastating power, but he can be outcrafted. And I do think that Agit Kabayel has the recipe to beat Zhilei Zhang. I'm actually going to kind of overturn what my initial prediction was in that video. I think that Agit Kabayel is going to be the first to stop Zhilei Zhang. I just think that Zhilei Zhang might, kind of do his thing and look like he's kind of hunting Kabayel down as Kabayel's moving. But I think that as the rounds go on, I think Kabayel's more fit. Zhilei Zhang has a good chin, but he just tires. And I don't think that Kabayel will let you off the hook in the same way that Joseph Parker often lets fighters that he might be beating off the hook. Kabayel is going to keep on coming at you. And if he senses vulnerability in Zhilei Zhang, yes, it does leave him more vulnerable to getting hurt, but it also gives him more opportunities to do more damage to Zhilei Zhang, who I think is going to be pretty exhausted by like the 7th round, something like that. So I'm actually going to switch from Kabayel via decision to Kabayel via stoppage in this one. Let me see what some of you are saying. Yeah, Nicholas, those uppercuts that Bakole landed on Anderson had him looking like a Pez dispenser. Yeah, especially because it looked like Jared Anderson walked into a couple of those uppercuts, right? He ducked into it thinking that he was like showing good movement and he just got drilled. Antonio Mice is in the house. Thank you for coming through. Yeah, Parker should be ready, and I think he will be. We'll see how he reacts to Bakole's shots, but he was supposed to be ready to handle Daniel Dubois shots. Does Bakole have more of a devastating pressure, not power? I think that they have similar power. One is a thudder, one is a cracker. And I think that Daniel Dubois probably has more power per one punch, I think. But it's tough. They both hit really damn hard. But I don't think that Bakole's pressure would necessarily be more immense than the style of pressure that Daniel Dubois has been applying as of late. So if Parker was ready for Dubois, he should be ready for Bakole, I think. Boy with 3 Y's is in the house. Thank you for coming through. You said Zhang will bang him out, or should I say, just for the sake of rhyming, Zhang will bang him out. Yeah, he's got the tools to do it. He's got that hard right, that hard left, and that hard right hook. I just think that Kabayel's got a lot of craft, and he's not a pitter pat puncher. Kabayel's out here hurting his opponents. Ask Makhmudov, and again, Zhang is more crafty than Makhmudov for sure. But he's a lot craftier than Makhmudov. Zhang could hurt Kabayel, but I think Kabayel's peaking at the right time, and I think Zhang is just on the other side of 40 right now, and I just don't think that over time he's going to be able to keep up with the pace. So if Zhang's not hurting Kabayel, he'll probably be losing the round. Jacob Perez said, it seems to take so much energy away if they keep feinting with their feet. I would focus on, with the body shots against Madrimov to make him more stationary. Body shot, yeah, sure. But the thing is, Crawford would go to Madrimov's body, and we know Vergil Ortiz loves to go to the body, but there's a risk in going to the body. You have to time that body attack well. But you're right, Vergil has to find opportunities, because if Vergil isn't going to the body, then he ain't doing nothing, because that is probably that's one of the most significant parts of his game. I would say between his body attack and his jab, really. Yes, he does throw up top with vicious right hands as well and vicious left hooks, but it's really his ferocious punches to the body that makes him such a dangerous fighter. He's got to mix some of that in there. Let's see. Antonio Mai says, Zhang versus Kabayel. Here you have a big puncher versus a crafty puncher. I can see a stoppage. Yeah, I kind of think Kabayel is going to stop Zhang. Nicholas said, I can't go with Kabayel by stoppage. Zhang will be dangerous late since he dropped Parker late. I think he'll play it safe and get the win on points. That's possible. That is possible. I do think Kabayel, it takes more chance. I don't know how to. I think Kabayel's got a little more nastiness in him than Joseph Parker. One of the things that used to frustrate me about Parker, especially in certain fights, like his fight against Junior Fa, his first fight against Derek Chisora, especially more than any, his fight against Dillian White, is that sometimes Parker is Mr. Nice Guy a little too much. It used to frustrate me about Shane Mosley in some of his fights too, where like if it's not going his way, Shane is like down to like tap gloves after every round and smile and tap gloves again. And like Parker used to do way too much of that. I haven't seen it as much lately, which I like. And there's no time for that right now. I get that Parker's one of the nicest guys in the sport, but it's kind of now or never in terms of getting that title shot. It just sucks for Parker that he's got to go through another killer in Martin Bakole before he gets what was supposed to be his title shot against Daniel Dubois. But I think that Kabayel has a little more nastiness to him and is a little bit more, I don't know if impatient is the word, but he really wants to go in there and do damage, it seems. Whereas Parker will spend more time boxing you from the outside without landing anything super meaningful. Yeah, I think that Kabayel is going to eventually get that stoppage. Jay Foreman said, I've been wrong about Dubois too many times to go against him. Yeah, I was wrong about him a lot. I was wrong about him. Well, did I pick him against? I did pick him against Joe Joyce. I did pick, and Joe Joyce won that. I picked Usyk, but yeah, there have been a few fights where I got it. I picked Filip Ergovic against Daniel Dubois, and I picked Anthony Joshua against Daniel Dubois. I think most of us got those three fights wrong. We thought he was going to beat Joe Joyce, and we thought he was going to lose to Ergovic and lose to AJ. Let's see. Why don't we get to the next one, which is, let's get right into it. Vergil Ortiz Jr. versus Madrimov. Vergil Ortiz is one of my favorite fighters in all of boxing. Again, vicious puncher to the body. Really, really nice jab. He does, he's been moving his head a little bit more, especially in the early rounds, like against Bohachuk. But as that fight went on, Vergil Ortiz, when he gets into like killer mode, he kind of leaves his head there to get hit. I'm going to keep it real with you. I think that Madrimov is going to hurt him. I think Vergil, unless he totally flips the script and starts becoming like the boxer without the ferocity, which, I mean, what's the point in that if you're Vergil Ortiz? Like, I don't think that you're going to pull off like a Austin Trout or Erislandy Lara type performance against Madrimov. I think that Vergil, even if, he starts at a measured pace behind a jab and defensively responsible early, I think that it's going to evolve into a Vergil Ortiz-like performance where he's just kind of going in with a lot of offense. And I think that he's going to have moments where he gets to Madrimov and he does, execute on his offense. I've long wondered with Vergil, or not long wondered, but at least since he made the move to 154 after his multiple bouts with rhabdomyolysis, which canceled multiple fights against Stanionis and postponed a fight against Michael McKinson before that. I don't know if Vergil Ortiz Jr. is as deadly a puncher at 154 as he was at 147. It's just a shame that we will never get to see what he could do against those other elite welterweights, right? Vergil, I just wanted to see those fights so bad, given that Vergil was kind of a taller welterweight with that ferocious just that scintillating, that electric style. Like I remember when he was beating the hell out of, Mauricio Herrera for a few rounds before he stopped him. I'm like, man, this guy just punches differently. Like it just looks like he's trying to like punch through his opponent. And I think that we will see some of that against Madrimov. I just think that Madrimov is a little too patient for this to go well for Vergil, man. I could see Vergil kind of getting hit with something and then kind of stiffening it, stiffening his leg up and then eventually getting dropped. I could just see one of that this might be one of those fights where that aggression backfires and then we just see the hunter become the hunted. I don't, unless he's able to get to Madrimov and Madrimov cannot keep that pressure off of him, I think Madrimov is going to hurt him, man. And it's not that Madrimov is necessarily a harder puncher than Vergil, but I think that it's a matter of timing and it's a matter of patience. It's a matter of waiting for the right shots at the right time. Now, granted, if Madrimov isn't finding those opportunities and Vergil is able to let his hands go and not pay the penalty for it, yeah, Vergil can either hurt Madrimov or he could win those rounds where he's not getting hurt. His volume overall is higher than Madrimov. But look at how Madrimov fought Kurbanov. I kind of feel like that is more likely the version of Madrimov that we're going to get. And that Madrimov was as busy with his left hand as he was with his straight right. So I don't know that Vergil wins the jab battle between the two. And again, sometimes when Vergil goes to the body, his chin is up there. I could just see Madrimov with those weirdly timed right hands catching Vergil. I could see Vergil getting caught with a left hook coming in. I just feel like there are too many moments in Vergil's fights where he's fought guys like Samuel Vargas or, Mean Machine Kabayel. Do you remember when Vergil got dropped against Mean Machine? They should have ruled it a knockdown. Vergil got hit a few times very cleanly against Maurice Hooker in those early rounds before he stopped Hooker. Not to say that Vergil's got a bad chin. I'm just saying that I've seen multiple fights where he gets visibly hurt. He got visibly hurt against Mean Machine, visibly hurt against he got dropped multiple times against Bohachuk, so that is what it is. But Madrimov, I feel like maybe I'm overrating his IQ, but I rewatched that, fight against Crawford a couple times. I've rewatched a couple of his other fights a couple of times. Now, granted, I have overhyped some of these Eastern Europeans sometimes, like I did again with Ergashev. Remember the guy who fought Subriel Matias? I thought Ergashev was going to give Matias some real problems. Matias broke him. I thought that Kolmatov and Ray Ford was a great fight. But Madrimov, again, there's something about the punches that he does not throw that makes me think that he's onto something. And Vergil's a smart guy too. Vergil's, you hear him talk about the sport, and Vergil wants to make you believe, just like Jose Ramirez makes it a point to say, hey, I'm not just a come forward, let your hands go type of guy. I'm a scientist in there too. I'm a boxer in there too. Vergil wants to tell you that, but Vergil will also tell you that he wants nothing more than to get in a firefight. He's very vocal about that. Madrimov ain't the one. Unless you are able to break him down, again, Madrimov can't keep him off of him, then, then Vergil might beat Madrimov. I just think that he's going to get hurt. He's going to get caught, hurt, maybe dropped, maybe stopped. And my prediction in the video, in the preview, was Madrimov via stoppage over Vergil. I'm going to stick with that one. I feel pretty, and look, I'm a Vergil fan. I'm going to be pulling for Vergil as I'm watching the fight. I just think that proceed with caution. Like, you know what I mean? I'm going to be on the edge of my seat like, be careful, Vergil. I know he's going out there for the kill, but again, I think that this might be the hunter becoming the hunted. And I think that Madrimov is going to get the stoppage against Vergil Ortiz. Yeah, Jacob Perez said Vergil lost his invincible aura against Sergey Bohachuk, which was a fight that really could have gone either way. It was like Vergil was taking shots as often as he was giving shots in that one. Aderi Pennant, yeah, you said who I got between Joseph Parker and Martin Bakole. Yeah, we actually just covered that one. After this live chat, feel free to rewind, but I'll reiterate. I actually went with Parker via decision. In my preview video for Dubois versus Parker, I was going Dubois via stoppage over Parker. But with the late replacement, I think Parker's got the IQ, the wherewithal, the boxing ability, the movement. I think that he's going to be able to beat Bakole via decision. The real deal is in the house. He said, Woog, what's up? I'm happy to see you. How are you? I'm well, man. We just had our first baby a few months ago. And so we're having the time of our life there. But just issuing previews, and I'm glad to hop back on a live chat. First one in a while. But yeah, thank you for coming through. I'm going with Madrimov to stop Vergil Ortiz Jr. Let me get to some of what you guys are saying. Nicholas said, when Vergil got dropped against Bohachuk, do I think that was just rust with how inactive he had been, or are those serious questions with his chin now? Vergil had 2 fights right before the Bohachuk fight. He had the fight against Thomas Delorme, first round knockout, and he had the fight against Fred Lawson right before that. So that was like his 3rd fight of the year of 2024. Granted, those first 2 fights were just 1 round and first round knockouts, both of them. So he didn't go through a lot of rounds, but I think that I think that he does have like some sort of a chin. There's something I think he got dropped by Mean Machine, and he got hurt aside from that moment where he should have been called for a knockdown. There were 2 different moments in the Mean Machine fight where I thought Vergil was visibly hurt. So either his footwork is getting crossed up to where he's off balanced too often, and even that is going to cost you against a fighter like Madrimov. But I don't think it was ring rust necessarily. I don't know if he could take he took a ton of punches against Bohachuk. So I do think he's got a good enough chin. It's not like a Canelo chin, but hardly anyone has ever had like a Canelo chin. Oscar De La Hoya had a phenomenal chin. How often do you remember seeing him? I know he got dropped by Iquarte, but one of the most durable chins I've ever seen. Vergil, I don't think he has a problematic chin, but he does get hurt if he gets caught cleanly by the right punch, and he does get knocked down, even if it's not the best punch that he got hit with. It might knock him down, footwork wise or otherwise. Yeah, you said that they seem like flash knockdowns, but it's odd that he went down twice like that. And they almost like didn't catch that first one. It was a few rounds later that they overturned it, and instead of a slip, they called it a knockdown eventually. Yeah, Jacob Perez said you feel like Sergey Bohachuk won the fight, but they gave it to Vergil because he's more of a popular boxer. Sometimes I think that type of politic plays into it. I thought that it really was like a could go either way fight when I was watching it. I thought that maybe Bohachuk edged it. Where does Benji Tucker, my cousin, what's up? We talk boxing all the time. Where does Madrimov rank in my 154? So are we including Jermell Charlo, Errol Spence, and Terrence Crawford? If we're including all of them, I would say he is. Damn, that's tough. Shuffling the deck and coming out with like your top 10 at 154 is tricky because you got Fundora, you've got Bakram Murtazaliev who stopped Tim Tszyu. You've got Tim Tszyu. Like, before Madrimov fought Crawford, or okay, let's say even after he fought Crawford, but before Tim Tszyu fought Murtazaliev, would I have favored Madrimov in a fight against Tim Tszyu? No, I don't think so. I would have gone with Tim Tszyu. I don't know what to make of Tim Tszyu after that Bakram Murtazaliev fight. But again, these things keep on changing. I don't know where to rank Jermell Charlo, but I couldn't imagine right now he would be a top 3 154 guy. I don't know if we'll ever see prime Jermell Charlo again. Right now, I would say Madrimov would be the number. Let's see. So Ring Magazine has Madrimov as the number 2 fighter behind Terrence Crawford. I would put Madrimov. I really want to put Sebastian Fundora as number 2. They've got Fundora at number 4 behind Bakram Murtazaliev. I mean, Fundora, it's a tricky thing with Fundora because he throws so many punches and he's such a awkward style matchup. Think about it. Madrimov would have to punch so high to get to Fundora. Everybody has to punch so high to get to Fundora. But I mean, before before Tim Tszú's head split open by the elbow from Fundora, it looked like Tim Tszú was on his way to beating Fundora. It did. It was only a couple of rounds, but I was seeing signs that, yeah, Tim Tszú's landing that right hand. He's starting to walk Fundora down a little bit. It's hard to rank. I mean, because the only sample size that we've seen at the elite level for Madrimov is against Crawford and against Kurbanov to a lesser degree. So here's the thing. I would rank Madrimov number... I would rank him like 3 or 4, but I wouldn't have Vergil all the way back at 5. I would have Vergil more like at 3. Murtazaliev, I wouldn't have as high as 3, even though he stopped Tim Tszú. I just need to see a little more. I mean, the two best guys he's beaten are Tim Tszú and Jack Kulke. So I wouldn't have Murtazaliev at 3 just off the strength of that Tim Tszú win. So I would probably have Crawford 1, Fundora 2, Vergil 3, Madrimov 4, Tim Tszú, Murtazaliev 5, Tim Tszú 6, Bohachuk 7. That's how I would do it right now. Maybe Conwell at 8. And again, I don't know where to put Jermell Charlo just because we haven't seen him fight in the division for since 2022 or something like that. It's been so long. And Errol Spence, we've seen nothing at 154. Last time we saw Errol, we remember what happened to Errol. Xander Zayas, not in the top 6, 7, and nothing like that. So that's how I'd rank 154 right now. And I know that I ranked Vergil over Madrimov, and I'm picking Madrimov to stop Vergil. Styles make fights again, but it's one of those show and prove. Vergil has shown me more, like in that fight against Bohachuk, coupled with the other 2 first-round knockouts. But I don't know, like Vergil doesn't have a huge sample size either. So, damn. I wouldn't be mad at Madrimov. I wouldn't be mad at placing Madrimov anywhere between 2 and 4. It depends on what you want to do with Sebastian Fundora, though. Like, are you a believer of Fundora? We've seen him fight a lot of people. The only guy who got the drop on him really was, Brian Mendoza, who has since gotten beaten up badly against Tim Tszú and Bohachuk. I want to rank Tim Tszú higher, but we just saw him get stopped. That's why 154 is so crazy. You could make arguments for any of these guys over any of the other guys. It's a tough one. Benji, let me know where you would put, based on all the names that I mentioned, let me know where you would put Israil Madrimov. I'm not mad, again, anywhere from 2 to 4 or even 5. Like there's an argument for that. Because again, we've really only seen him against Kurbanov and Terrence Crawford at the elite level. Let's get to the next fight. But first I want to get to some of what you are saying. Boy with 3Y said, what are the percentage chances of Sheeraz getting knocked out? I want to bet on him. Does he have a chin? We don't know if he has a chin. He's barely gotten tested by any of these guys. He gets them out of there pretty quickly. He's got such an offensive arsenal. I don't know whether he has a chin. I don't know if he's Amir Khan, where you're blessed with beautiful offense, but you can't take a lot of shots, which Amir Khan, I've said this before, gets a little bit of a bad rap. Remember, he went the distance and beat Marcos Maidana. He's beaten 10, good fighters over several rounds. But is that the one that we're going to get into next? Yeah, let's get into the Carlos Adames versus Hamzah Sheeraz. Yeah, Adari Pennant, I agree. Joseph Parker versus Agit Kabayel would be a good boxing match. It might be such a good boxing match that it ends up being a little bit of a non-eventful fight, just given the styles. I could see Joseph Parker in a snoozer. He's been in a couple of lackluster fights. Let's see. And yeah, Jai Opataya versus Moses Itama would be a good future fight. I've got to see a little more from Itama, but he's looking like the real deal. Let's see. Carlos Adames versus Hamzah Sheeraz. This one is interesting, especially because, Adames has been fighting a lot of, it's been kind of slim pickings, right? I mean, the middleweight division's been what it's been. Carlos Adames has been beating like the Derevianchenkos, the Julian J. Rock Williams, recently Terrell Goucher in a terrible fight. But he's been beating these guys, and he stopped Juan Macias Montiel, the guy who actually gave Jermall Charlo one of his toughest, roughest fights in Jermall Charlo's second to last fight. Basically, Jamal Charlo's last fight before his long hiatus was against Montiel. It was an ugly performance, but Carlos Adames smoked that guy out, Montiel, in 3 rounds. So Adames was wanting that fight against Jamal Charlo. Never got it. He was the interim champ for a long time. They eventually elevated him to full WBC champ. And now he's going to be fighting Hamzah Sheeraz, who's looking golden. Got all the offense in the world. I just don't think he's going to dispose of Carlos Adames like he disposed of Liam Williams in like the first round, was it? He disposed of Liam Williams quickly. He over time beat up and stopped Austin Ammo Williams, one of those hot prospects, and he beat Denny. Denny's Tyler Denny. After Tyler Denny beat Felix Cash, who was Felix Cash beat Denzel Bentley. I think he was the first guy to beat Denzel Bentley. I thought highly of Felix Cash, but then Felix Cash had some like life issues. He was out of the ring, big hiatus, came back for a couple fights. Then he fought Tyler Denny. Tyler Denny stopped Felix Cash, beating him up. I think it was stopped due to a cut. And then Tyler Denny got smoked by Hamzah Sheeraz. So Hamzah Sheeraz isn't even giving people like a lot of time to survive. Yes, Austin Ammo Williams went a few rounds, but Williams was getting beaten up badly throughout that fight. Again, Carlos Adames, I think, is better than all these guys Hamzah Sheeraz has been fighting. Carlos Adames is better than Austin Ammo Williams. Way more experience. Again, he's beaten Derevianchenko at 160, not 168. Like people are beating up Derevianchenko at 168 now. Carlos Adames switches it up from orthodox to southpaw. Hamzah Sheeraz is super tall for the division. He's like 6'4" or something like that. He changes levels. He's got a really nice jab hand. He'll do the kind of Oscar De La Hoya thing where he'll do the jab, change levels, jab, change levels, move his feet, turn that jab into a hook. Sometimes he'll hurt you with that. And he could drop the right hand as well. Again, we haven't seen him tested. Carlos Adames has a pretty damn good jab. Sometimes he gets pretty aggressive in his fights. So if he could back Hamzah Sheeraz up, then I think that we've got a fight. If he waits on Sheeraz and he's just kind of tentative and standing out there, Hamzah Sheeraz is going to pick him apart. I think we're going to get a pretty aggressive Adames. I think that at some point, though, Hamzah Sheeraz is going to take a step back, catch him coming in. Adames is going to be giving up a lot of height in this one. I think we're going to get a competitive fight. I think that Hamzah Sheeraz is going to do enough to win a decision, not stoppage this time, but a decision over Carlos Adames. Again, this is a big step up, and this is a title fight, and Carlos Adames is the champ in this one. But Carlos Adames is also a greater than 2-1 underdog against Hamzah Sheeraz. I think Hamzah Sheeraz is going to end up out, kind of just out striking. I think that there's going to be some fireworks. We might even get a drop. I think he might even drop Carlos Adames. But Adames has a lot of experience. He's fought some of the better fighters, of the past few years in the division. No, it hasn't been like Janibek Alamhanala or, any of the. He hasn't fought Arislani Lara. That's the fight that I thought they were going to eventually make, since they both held belts and they were both on PBC. I thought we were going to get Arislani Lara versus Carlos Adames, but we didn't get Adames versus Lara, didn't get Adames versus Charlo, but here he's going to be fighting Hamzah Sheeraz, and I think that Hamzah Sheeraz is going to win, but it's going to be via decision, and I think that Carlos Adames is going to win a few rounds here. I think it's going to be interesting. Hamzah Sheeraz hasn't fought somebody as solid as this. I think Adames is going to have his moments of pushing Hamzah Sheeraz back. I think there are going to be moments where it looks like Hamzah Sheeraz is a little stressed out and getting, the pressure that Adames is applying might look like it's starting to get to Sheeraz, but Sheeraz does have a lot of tools. Carlos Adames at some point I think is going to fatigue a little bit, and then I think Hamzah Sheeraz is going to start picking him apart a little bit more. Again, I'm going to trust Adames's durability and experience, but I'm going to go with Hamzah Sheeraz, the young cat here, to pick up the decision win and to capture that WBC middleweight title. And then you could only hope that we get some Turkey al-Ashik further intervention, and we're going to get Janibek, who's got 2 of the belts, against Hamzah Sheeraz. That's what I'm hoping for in the middleweight division. I also don't know how long somebody as tall as Sheeraz will be able to stay at middleweight. But yeah, I'm going to go with Sheeraz to beat Adames via decision here. Yeah, that's the one we're going to get to next. The Shakur Stevenson against Padley, with Padley taking taking Floyd Schofield's place. I was about to drop a preview because this was a very unusual fight for somebody as young as Floyd Schofield to be taking on a challenge like the champion, the 3-division champion. To me, one of the best 10 pound for pound fighters in the sport, Shakur Stevenson. Floyd Schofield, usually we see these hot prospects, fight a former champ or like a journeyman, somebody who's got some name recognition, but who's like over the hill or something. And then they start working their way up, fighting those, those names. And then they eventually get to a title shot. But nah, it looked like Floyd Schofield was going to get right into the fire and fight Shakur Stevenson, who was he was like a 7 or 9 to 1 favorite against Floyd Schofield. So yeah, I didn't think Floyd Schofield had much of a chance at beating Shakur Stevenson. In fact, I was a little surprised that Shakur Stevenson, thank you, Jacob Perez, for saying congrats on becoming a father. Same with you, real deal. Thank you for that. I was surprised that Shakur Stevenson took this one because it seemed like it was a lose-lose proposition. If you beat, unless he obliterated Floyd Schofield or like dominated like 10 rounds to 2, this wasn't going to like do anything to like help Shakur Stevenson's PR after that stinker of a fight against Edwin De Los Santos, who still hasn't been back in the ring since that Stevenson's fight, or against Artem Haratunian, the guy who gave Frank Martin a lot of problems. Remember, Shakur Stevenson in his last fight beat Haratunian, won almost every round, but it was unspectacular. So people continued to kind of dump on Shakur Stevenson for kind of like not stopping guys like that. If Floyd Schofield lost to Stevenson, but it was like 9 rounds to 3 or 8 rounds to 4, that could still be viewed as a win for Floyd Schofield, depending on how he performed. For Shakur Stevenson to win in the eyes of the public, he would have had to either stop Floyd Schofield or win like 10 rounds to 2, 11 to 1, and totally dominate him. Floyd Schofield would have to get like embarrassed for it to really look for it to feel like a bad loss for Floyd Schofield. But I thought that Shakur Stevenson was going to win, but I thought that it was going to be like 9 rounds to 3, but I thought that Floyd Schofield would stop going for it and would start fighting a more measured fight to where he's more so wanting to just make it out of there, go the distance, not get humiliated by Shakur Stevenson. And I thought that Shakur Stevenson would win, but once again, in unspectacular fashion. Now he's going to be fighting somebody who I think is at least going to be coming after him. Josh Padley just upset Mark Chamberlain, who was like an undefeated, guy with a lot of, hype out in the UK. Josh Padley upset him. That's going to be Shakur Stevenson's short notice opponent here. I still think Shakur Stevenson's going to beat Padley, but I think he's going to do it in more spectacular fashion than he was going to do against Floyd Schofield. I think this one is actually going to make Shakur Stevenson look a little bit like Shakur Stevenson looked against Jamel Herring. I think, and the more pressure Padley applies, the more Padley goes for it, I think the better Shakur Stevenson's going to look. So this is almost like a fortuitous turn of events for Shakur Stevenson. The fact that he's not going to be fighting the super gifted and talented, but way too young, in my view, and inexperienced Floyd Schofield, but he's going to be fighting somebody who's going to be coming at him, who's not as talented as Floyd Schofield, but is going to give it a good enough effort to where he probably gets stopped by Shakur Stevenson. So I think he's actually going to get a finish here. And, he's got a lot of frustration that I'm sure he wants to get off his chest. Like, he can't catch a break here. He can't get a meaningful opponent, can't score a meaningful win. Pretty much ever since the Oscar Valdez fight, I guess to a lesser degree, you could say that the Conceição fight, the Edwin De Los Santos fight would have been a good win if it, I feel like he's still trying to get the stink off of that Edwin De Los Santos fight. I feel like that stench is still in the air, and it's still kind of hurting Shakur Stevenson's PR. But I think that if he obliterates Josh Padley, that'll at least be an exciting look for once, or first time in a while for Shakur Stevenson. And I think that's what's going to happen here. Juan Gallardo, thank you for coming through. You said, do I think that there's a bug going around? Yeah, what's up with Saudi? Stay away from the buffets out there. Stay away from the masseuses. Floyd Schofield's team is talking about them putting a weird cream on him during the massage, and that's what hospitalized him. Like, but what the hell is going on? You had Floyd Schofield fall ill, and then you had Daniel Dubois fall ill. Is it because of the travel, being at the airports? It's still, winter time. It could be any one of those things. Usually if you're flying in the winter, there is a pretty decent likelihood you're going to get sick. There are all kinds of flus flying around. People getting sick around this time of year. But it's just kind of weird that two fighters on this fight card are having to pull out of the fight. And again, those accusations that Floyd Schofield's making, that Team Schofield at least is making towards Shakur Stevenson, it looks like Team Stevenson isn't taking those poisoning accusations lightly, nor should they. That's a pretty terrible thing to say about your opponent in terms of like why you got sick. The other that it sounds almost Deontay Wilder-ish around the time he fired Mark Breland and said that Mark Breland conspired to taint his water in the corner, his own trainer. Remember that? Like, Deontay Wilder never sounded worse or never looked worse PR wise than that. So before we wrap it up, we're going to talk a little bit about the main event, which, again, if you haven't checked out the preview, I did a whole Beterbiev versus Bivol 2 preview, but I'm going to give you who I think is going to win. Let me get to some of what you're saying. El Chivo, thank you for coming through. What fight am I most looking forward to? The rematch between Beterbiev versus Bivol, number 1, and then Vergil Ortiz Jr. versus Madrimov, number 2. Super excited about that fight. Vergil's one of my favorite fighters in the sport, but I do think he's going to get stopped against Madrimov. Let's see. The Real Deal said, I'm with you on this choice. Which one? The Sheeraz versus Adames? Sheeraz via decision. Let's see. Jacob Perez said, Shakur fighting an Uber driver. We wanted to see him fight Schofield. Yeah. And, this might be the excitement that Shakur Stevenson's career needs a little bit, Yeah, William Zepeda's going to, yeah, you're right. Antonio Maiz. Zepeda, who pulled out of the Stevenson fight citing a hand injury, is going to be fighting a rematch against Tevin Farmer. Their first fight was really good, and I'm really curious to see who makes adjustments in that rematch. But yeah, we really want to see Shakur versus William Zepeda. I feel like that's the fight at lightweight that needs to happen. I mean, there are a few, like Gervonta Davis against Lomachenko needs to happen. Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda needs to happen. Just where they are in their respective careers, they're about the same age. That one needs to happen. The Real Deal said, I am from Saudi Arabia. Oh, word up. You said it seems like the cold affected him there. Let me tell you that our cold is different. Wow. That's dope. Saudi Arabia native in the house. Heck yeah. El Chivo said, I think Bivol will get dropped this time around. I actually think Bivol's going to win this one via close decision. Here's the thing. I think Bivol could fight basically the exact same fight that he fought in the first fight. And I think that the judge could go the other way. I think that the decision could go the other way if he does the exact same thing that he did in the first fight in this second fight. What I don't think he should do is try to mix it up a little bit more, thinking that he's got to be more offensive. That's a recipe for disaster. You did so well not to get badly hurt against one of the most destructive forces in all of boxing. I mean, think about it. Bivol was getting, stabbed, jabbed to the body. He was getting hit, kind of around the guard when Beterbiev would really start getting offensive. When is Beterbiev not offensive, right? But Bivol's defense was so good that he was moving. He was timing Beterbiev super well. Remember those first few rounds? But even in those first rounds, Beterbiev would still have his big moments with big right hands, late in the first round. Bivol was moving super well, was timing Beterbiev, was getting off first, landing flush with a couple combinations. Even though I feel like the public, we kind of look at it like one Beterbiev shot is worth 2 Bivol shots or 3 Bivol shots. That's kind of the idea. But Bivol, even in the middle rounds and late rounds, still kept his hands up. Think about that. Bivol said that Beterbiev hit so hard that he bruised his face through the gloves. Basically, Beterbiev's hand hits Bivol's glove hits Bivol's face, and Bivol starts to bruise because of how hard Beterbiev's shots are getting blocked by Bivol. Think about that. He also said he felt like his thumbs were going to go through his skull because he kept his hands up, and Beterbiev hits that hard throughout the 12 rounds. So I think that Bivol needs to do more of what he was doing. Maybe the one thing that he could do is be a little bit more conditioned to where he doesn't get caught up as much as he was getting caught up later in the fight, and more specifically, late in some of those rounds where Bivol would look really good in the first minute and a half, but Beterbiev would have enough moments in like the final 45 seconds of a few of those rounds to where I think that that's what flipped it, and he kind of stole those rounds, and that's what ultimately got him the win. If Bivol can avoid some of that, he could fight the same fight that he fought in the first time. This, the decision goes the other way. Yeah, number 23 is in the house. Thank you for coming through. He said, I kind of feel sorry for Parker. Not fair how he got Bakole and Shakur got he said a British fighter. There are a lot of good British fighters. I'll give you one. At 140, Dalton Smith. I'm keeping my eye on him. I look at him as being a real talent. But you're basically saying Shakur got a lesser opponent and Parker's got to fight Bakole for a non-title fight. Think about that. Parker was supposed to fight for the IBF belt. It's been such a long road back to the title for Joseph Parker ever since he lost in that unification bout in like 2018 against Anthony Joshua. It's been this type of a road. Parker beats a few, guys, then he loses to like Joe Joyce. He lost to Dillian White several fights before that. Finally makes it back to the title after upsetting Wilder, upsetting Zhang. And now he's got to fight not Daniel Dubois for the title, but Martin Bakole, the guy who everybody's avoiding. Hats off to Joseph Parker, man. Gotta love the guy. MAW is in the house. Smash that like button. Yeah, thank you. It's been a while, man. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad that I was able to jump on a live chat. First time in a few months, really. Yeah, thank you for coming through. Jay Foreman said, many of these younger guys are living up to the hype as of yet anyway. Shakur Stevenson, Ryan Garcia, Tank. Yeah, you're right. Ryan Garcia, a lot of people were skeptical. Look, there was the PEDs thing and the weight thing, and Ryan Garcia is an absolute maniac, and I personally think that he's got like some real mental health issues. But as a talent, tell me there's a guy who could fight him, even if Tank Davis ran it back against Ryan Garcia, depending on like the weight that they fought, and as long as Tank doesn't drain him to like 135. I think Ryan's got a real shot in a rematch against Tank. The power is unmistakable. Like, the guy is dangerous. But yeah, a lot of these prospects, Teofimo Lopez, a lot of these guys are coming into fruition. We got to see if the next generation could do the same thing, right? Raymond Ford, Diego Pacheco, Floyd Schofield, Abdullah Mason, Keyshawn Davis just had a shining moment against Baranchik. Let's see. The real deal said, I think Beterbiev will catch Bivol this time. Really? But Bivol just seems like such an unbreakable guy. You know what I mean? Like, we've seen him hurt. I saw him hurt late in the 9th or 10th round against Joe Smith Jr. Granted, Joe Smith Jr. evidently is no Artur Beterbiev, but I'm just saying, like, there's this discipline in Dmitry Bivol. I just think that he's very scientific about his work, and he's so good defensively, and his timing is so good. And when he doubles and triples up on his jab, and maybe Beterbiev will look to counter some of those double and triple jabs, but I think that there was a slight hand speed advantage for Dmitry Bivol as well. I have a lot of faith in Bivol. I think that he will at least go the distance. Look, one thing I'm convinced with these guys, I feel like these guys are like right here, neck and neck. Very different styles, but it kind of amounts to arriving at the same place by the end of the 12th round. Bivol's got his style, Beterbiev's got his style, but ultimately the way that they perform and the way that they perform against each other, I think this is going to be another very close decision fight. But I think that Bivol will be awarded the decision this time around. The real deal said, you think Parker will do Bakole dirty. Bakole is vulnerable. Yes, he is a very dangerous and big dude, but Parker can outbox him. Yeah, I think that Parker's going to beat him via decision. Antonio Mai said, we know Bivol can withstand the pressure, but he has to fight a smart fight. Beterbiev will probably be more aggressive this time. And remember, Beterbiev was coming off of a knee injury / surgery, which was amazing that he was able to keep on cutting the ring off in the way that he was, and that he was able to perform in the way that he was, being that was just a few months after his knee injury, right? And this is another thing. This is the quickest turnaround for Artur Beterbiev since 2015. Think about that. Since 2015, Beterbiev never fights a few months a few months. Like this is what, like 4 months after his first fight, October, then November, December. Yeah, 4 months. Beterbiev hasn't done that in 10 years. Is that a good thing or a bad thing for the now 40-year-old Artur Beterbiev? We'll see. Jacob Perez asks, can Benavidez beat either Beterbiev or Bivol? I think that Benavidez has a better chance at beating Beterbiev. Benavidez has a better chance at beating Beterbiev. Try to say that a few times. I just want to say it again just to say it. I think Benavidez has a better chance at beating Beterbiev than Bivol. I need to write that one down. I just don't think that he could outbox or get to Bivol, who again I think I look at as being kind of unbreakable. But again, I think Benavidez has a better chance at beating Beterbiev than Bivol. But I have to see before it's all said and done. I have to see Beterbiev versus Benavidez. Just imagine what that fight would look like. Offense versus offense. Something's got to give. Something's got to crack. And I think that it would be Benavidez. I know he's got the volume, but Beterbiev, man, there's just something about that dude's punch by punch ferocity. Let's see. Yeah, we're about to wrap it up in a sec. But yeah, give me your predictions on some of these. So again, just kind of going through it. I've got Bivol beating Beterbiev via decision. I've got Parker beating Bakole via decision. I've got Shakur Stevenson stopping Josh Padley. I've got Hamzah Sheeraz beating Carlos Adames via decision. I've got Madrimov stopping Vergil Ortiz Jr. I've got Kabayel. At first, in my actual preview, I said Kabayel via decision over Zhang. I switched it with this in this video. Kabayel beating Zhang via stoppage. And then I've got Joshua Buatsi beating Callum Smith via decision. Although it wouldn't surprise me if the hard hitting, people forget, man, Callum Smith's only lost to Canelo and Beterbiev. Callum Smith can't hurt Buatsi, but I'm going to go with Buatsi via decision. Jay Foreman said, I like Benavidez, but I think he gets KO'd by both Beterbiev and Bivol. You think Bivol stops Benavidez? Wow. Interesting. Yeah, you're right. Jacob Perez. Benavidez is the mandatory after beating Morel. However, if Bivol beats Beterbiev, I think that Turkey and team are going to want to run a trilogy fight between them. So I think Benavidez is going to have to figure out something else to do. Hopefully, if it's not against the winner of Beterbiev versus Bivol 2, hopefully it would then be either Benavidez against either Anthony Yard or maybe even better, the winner of Joshua Buatsi versus Callum Smith. Because remember, for a time, Benavidez and Callum Smith were both belt holders at 168. At the same time, Zordo Ramirez was a belt holder there. So I would like if Callum Smith beats Joshua Buatsi or Buatsi beats Callum Smith, I would want the winner to fight Benavidez if Benavidez can't get the winner of Beterbiev versus Bivol 2 because Bivol won the rematch and they're going to run it back in the third fight. I also wouldn't be super surprised, by the way, if Beterbiev versus Bivol 2 results in a draw. MAW is going with Callum Smith over Joshua Buatsi, Kabayel over Zhilei Zhang, Madrimov over Vergil. Oh, so you got Madrimov over Vergil too. Again, Vergil's one of my favorite in the sport, but I'm going Madrimov via stoppage. You're going Shakur, Joseph Parker over Bakole, and Dmitry Bivol. Number 23's got Ortiz winning by KO. FC, thank you for coming through. And thank you for that comment the other day. I don't know if you responded to my response. I think you might have, but I appreciate like all of the feedback and I appreciate like the other commentary because you always give good insight in the comments. A lot of you do, by the way. But yeah, thank you for that. You said, I can't agree with you more on your assessment of Bivol's subtle tweak for this rematch. Great job, brother. 100. Yeah, thank you. By the way, and Mexico's in the house, right? Heck yeah. Yeah, I want to thank you guys once again for coming through. Number 23, MAW, The Real Deal, Jay Foreman, Jacob Perez, FC. Oh, Jay Foreman said, congrats on being a father, brother. Yeah, thank you, Jay Foreman. One of my, you're one of the first people who I really started chatting online boxing with, you know, through the videos and stuff, you know, like I feel like we go back, you know what I mean? When I first started the channel, you were one of the first people I was conversing with. Yeah, thank you for that. A legendary SS Jackson. Yeah, thank you for coming through. You said Benavidez wants no parts of Beterbiev. Jacob Perez said, I think Madrimov will beat Vergil Ortiz. Okay. Yeah. I'm going with that too. The Real Deal said you're going with Callum Smith over Buatsi. Wow. You know, Callum Smith is a greater than 2-1 underdog against Buatsi. So I'm seeing a lot of Callum Smith over Buatsi. I was tempted to go there, but I ultimately went with Buatsi by decision. But if it wasn't that, I would have gone Callum Smith, maybe even by stoppage. I still have a lot of faith in Callum Smith's punching power, but I'm going with Buatsi. But you're saying Callum Smith, Kabayel, Madrimov, Shakur Stevenson, Parker, Beterbiev. All solid. All solid. I really do look at Beterbiev versus Bivol 2 as being 50-50. Ventru is in the house. Heck yeah. Says, sup, Woog. Sup, Ventru? Yeah, good to hear from you, man. I saw that you had commented, I think, either earlier today or yesterday. Thank you for that. But yeah, we're about to wrap this one up, yo. Antonio Maiz, thank you for coming through, too. And El Chivo. Juan Gallardo. Adari Pennant. Benji Tucker, a.k.a. my cousin. Boy, thank you for coming through. B.O. with 3 Ys. Nicholas, thank you for coming through. Ryan Hong, thank you for coming through. Yeah, thank you guys once again, man. I hope you guys enjoy the fight card. It's early. I know this wasn't the ideal time to do the chat. I just wanted to get this in. Oh, you said, what's my music channel, Ventru? It's Woog Talks Music. 3 different words. Woog Talks Music. I do very just multi-genre, hip-hop, classic rock, new indie style rock. Yeah, a little bit of everything, even like classic oldies, like Motown era oldies, 60s, 70s. I break down a lot of the stuff and give a lot of history, new music, old music. Yeah, but Woog Talks Music is that one. Yeah, the weigh-ins should be interesting. Hope there are no surprises. I agree, Antonio Maiz. Yeah, thank you guys once again. Enjoy the fights on Saturday. Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be a long day of boxing. This is the best fight card I've seen in a long time. I can't recall a better one from top to bottom in a long time. Yeah, and thank you. And thanks. Yeah, smash the like button if you haven't. Yeah, I cover some jazz too, actually, on the music channel. MAW. Yeah, thank you. I hope you enjoyed the recent breakdowns. Number 23 said Ortiz is an Aries. Too much energy. Yeah, he attacks with a lot of ferocity. I think it's going to backfire against Madrimov. Heck yeah. But enjoy the fights, y'all. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.